Hello, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I hope you've been having a wonderful week. I definitely have. I've been completely snatched by the Michael Jackson multiverse, and I'm not even upset about it. Not one bit. In fact, I think I'd like to stay there for the rest of my life. And the reason I say that is because it is a pocket of the internet and the world, really, where people are coming together, united under this common frequency of love and creation. And there's also just so much beautiful sharing and support and just actually engagement with each other and championing and cheering. This generosity is overflowing. Like, if you aren't in the MJ multiverse right now, I highly recommend you start training your algorithm to get there so that you can also feel this frequency of generosity, of love, of creation, connection. It's truly extraordinary to see what is happening. And inside of that, it obviously has me thinking a lot about my path as a creative and how that has informed everything that I have built and created, both creatively, but also in business and in all areas of my life. So today I wanted to get into a conversation about creating the conditions for greatness. Because greatness isn't just something that happens because you want it to happen. It happens because we are willing to create the conditions for the greatness to thrive and grow and be fostered, but then we also are taking epic action. I've been having so much fun on Threads, just letting her rip and making all sorts of fun posts over there. And the one that I put up today, it's a little meme from the MJ movie. And if you haven't seen the movie, this won't make any sense to you. But if you have, or if you even heard the story about how Michael Jackson used to say, if I get an idea at like 3 a.m, I have to go in the studio and get it down, because if I don't get it down, then God is going to give it to Prince. And in the movie, he's laying in the pool and his brothers are giving him a hard time. And they're like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm channeling." I'm like receiving the energy to actually go and create my next hit. And there's so much brilliance inside of that, I think is going to go over a lot of people's heads, especially the people who have lost touch with their hearts, or if for some reason they are just not wanting to spend their life creating something masterful. But for those of us who are on a different train, and trust me, you are on that train if you are listening to this podcast, if you follow me on any platform, if you've been around my vortex for a while, you can guarantee yourself that you have an extraordinary mission on this planet. Even if your human is like, I don't think that's true. Trust me, it's true. Your frequency would not be in resonance with mine if you actually weren't here to create something extraordinary with your life. Whether that is art, whether that's a business, whether that is some form of creative expression, maybe it's a family, I don't know, but it's something. There is something in you. There's this soul spark, this creative spark in you that is trying to be made manifest through the experience of you in your life. And so in order for that level of mastery to come through, we really do need to talk about what creates the conditions for greatness. Because not everybody in this lifetime is going to really knock it out of the park. And a lot of that has to do with the conditions that they are creating for themselves in their life. And when we are in these more generative conversations, the first thing that creates the conditions for greatness is cutting the noise and the bullshit out. So any allegiance you have to victim consciousness, that you have to pain and suffering, that you have to, essentially feeling sorry for yourself and the things that didn't work out, and you get stuck in these loops. You got to cut that shit out. There's so much that stops really extraordinary people from actualizing, that's tied to their repeated hypnosis, self-hypnosis of suffering. These ideas that life is hard and you have to suffer. And so we create our life in a way to ensure that that becomes true. And if you are on the path to greatness, and this is not to say there won't be challenges or that you won't feel pain or that there won't be moments when you suffer, because this is the human realm and it's dynamic, okay? You are going to have those experiences, but whether or not you identify your life through that experience is what sets apart people who manifest greatness and the ones that don't. And so you've got to be ruthless in your willingness to cut that bullshit out. We have to be willing to sacrifice those ways of being and adopt a more expansive way of being if we're really going to step on that path of greatness. And cutting out the noise and the bullshit also includes the distractions. Now, I'm not suggesting that you have to never watch Netflix again or have a night out. Like, of course not. You know me. I love sinking my fingers and my teeth into the full range of life. Okay. But there is a difference between, taking a break and watching Netflix and checking out and watching Netflix. Not tending to your purpose and watching Netflix. Avoiding the work that you need to do or the conversations that you need to have and watching Netflix. Do you catch my drift? You can watch Netflix. You can have your vices, your quote unquote distractions, as long as they are not distracting you from the main focus of your life, which is your mission. Okay. Another aspect of cutting out the noise and the bullshit is anyone in your life who is a dream killer, straight to jail. Goodbye. Beat it. And you've got to be ruthless. And the parts of you that are like people pleasy and codependent are really going to not like that. But why can't everybody come along? I just want to love everybody. Well, you can love everyone, but you cannot take everyone with you where you're headed, because some people are like maggots and they will destroy the foundation of anything you build. And I know that sounds dramatic, but it really isn't. The amount of people who have abandoned their own dreams and then they make it their fucking mission to kill off other people's dreams so that they don't feel the shame of abandoning their own. It's wild how many of those people exist. And they probably exist in your family system. They probably exist in your social circle. They probably exist in your work. And I'm not suggesting you need to cut them off entirely. The only time I'd ever advocate for that is if it's actually an abusive situation, then yes, they got to go. Goodbye. But if that's not the case and they're just a dream killer, you have to be so committed to your vision, to your greatness, to your mission, that you are wildly protective of it, meaning you only share it when it's so far down the line and like the momentum is going and it can't be stopped. But when you're first starting out, it is really susceptible, and you are really susceptible to those types of influences. And this is one of the gates that you have to initiate yourself in order to hold the magnificence of greatness and your mission. So like this is part of the process. You're not escaping it. So the sooner that you surrender to it, the better. And we can't avoid this stop on the juncture, on the path. And this stop, it trains you how to fiercely protect what needs protecting. And without this, you open yourself up to be taken advantage of. You open yourself up for leeches and extractors. And the scariest part of all of that is that you open yourself up to the possibility of never actually actualizing. That to me is way more terrifying than the leeches and the gremlins that come in, because that's another juncture you're going to have to walk through, another initiation. And when you're in the initial stages, whether it's a creative project, whether it's a business, whether it's art, you have to be so intentional and like a fierce protector, like a mama bear or like a mama lion. She is not letting anyone near those cubs, not even their father. Nature gives the template always. Okay. And so you've got to think about your dream and your mission like that baby cub, and you are its fierce guardian in these initial stages. And you cannot, and I know you want to, I know you want your family to be proud of you. I know you want them to back you, and they will if they have followed their own dreams. So this is how you can tell who you can tell. If they have followed their own dreams and they are actively in the game and they never gave up, they kept going, no matter how many times, they hit failure or something didn't work out, but they kept going. And they know what it takes to stay the course. You can tell someone like that most of the time. Like I haven't met anyone on that track who I wouldn't feel comfortable telling, a new project to or my mission to, because they get it. They've walked the path already. But if there's anyone in your life who has abandoned their dreams and abandoned their mission and they've given up, you cannot tell them about what you're doing, because they are going to, like crabs in the bucket, say whatever they need to say to get you to give up on your dreams, so that they aren't alone in the fact that they gave up on their own. And this is a hard thing. And this is why in my body of work, we have this spot where we work on relational mastery, because that is a spot that really fucks people up. When we have these unhealed wounds that are still running and we are still wanting our parents' validation or our siblings' validation or belonging, we are going to take it back to them and be like, see, here's my gift. Like, look how beautiful and shiny it is. And they're like, ew, that's a fucking turd. Get it out of here. Gross. Why are you playing with that? Like, who do you think you are? Like, they're going to, and this happened in one of our containers recently, where the dream killers come in and they flood the system of the creator with all of this fear of like, that's never going to work out. How are you ever going to make money doing that? Like, artists don't make money. Like, they flood the system with so much fear that it immobilizes the creator from actually taking action to get the momentum going. And that's done on purpose, but unconsciously. Like they're not consciously being like, I think I'd like to kill my sister's dream today. No, most people are operating on autopilot. They sniff out, oh, you're going for your dream. Oh, that makes me feel a lot of shame because I gave up on mine. I better kick you off kilter. And then everyone else kind of jumps on the train, and then they frame it as, we just love you. We just care about you. We're just worried for you. Well, the thing is about love, if you really love someone, you back them. You believe in them. You champion them. You're real with them. Don't think that it's just about blowing smoke up someone's ass. That's not it. That's not love either. But if someone's going for their dream, you're like, cool, amazing. I love this for you. How's that going? What are the steps you're taking? Like, what's your plan? Like, how do you see yourself creating this into form? And what kind of support are you going to need? I'm always a big fan of having a secondary source of income if you are building a business or if you are investing into your artistry, and you have that secondary form of income until your business or your art replaces your income. And I feel very strongly about that, because if you are in a state of scarcity and you're worried about your survival needs, what you're creating is being filtered through that energy, and it's not going to land the way that it would if that was taken care of. You're like, okay, my rent's taken care of, my bills are taken care of. It's not the most luxurious life yet, but that's fine. I have space to do my art. I have space to build my business. I have space to devote myself to the thing that I'm here to create. And when you don't have to worry about those survival aspects, then you actually can put your whole heart into what you're creating. And that is the secret. That's the secret weapon. It's your heart. It's your access to love, your connection to creation, source energy that comes through your vessel and moves through your heart and expresses out through you in whatever medium you're using. So when someone is really backing you, they're going to want to make sure that you're taken care of in that way without also killing your dream. Be like, cool. So like, are you still going to work your job and then you're going to do this like in the off time, like kind of like Michael Jackson had to do? Like, that's literally how Thriller happened, by the way. His dad was like, Michael's mine from 9 to 5, but if he wants to do a solo album, he can do that after he's done working with me. And that's what he did. He built and created one of the most successful albums of all time in the off season, in the off time, in his spare time. And that's how you have to get. This is why those distractions have to go. Because if you're more committed to the distractions, then you won't have time. But if you clear the distractions and you're like, I'm going to take care of what I need to take care of so that I'm taken care of. And then I spend my free time building my business or doing my art or the thing that I want to create. And I'm going to do that until I can replace the income from my job with the thing that I'm here to do, And it's not as sexy of a path than, some of these industry people who are like, just quit your job and like everything will fall into place. I've never seen that happen. And the people that it looks like that happened for, they're not always telling you the truth. A lot of them have like money that's kind of funding their life in some way, shape, or form, whether that's a divorce settlement or divorce alimony, or they sold a house or assets and they have a bit of a nest egg to work with. And so you've got to, again, be so particular and precious and intentional and protective over your energy and what you're consuming and how it makes you feel. Because if you're watching someone like that and you're like, I feel shitty about myself because I can't do that, or that's not my situation, that's just someone you got to mute for a little while, because that's actually not supporting you staying in the pocket. Okay. And when you're able to kind of handle like that first tier of like, you got to cut the noise and the bullshit, you get that all dialed, then you need to look at your habits and really investing into high level habits. And a high level habit is anything that produces positive returns on its energy. So the energy you invest, it comes back tenfold. So I think of high level habits like things like sleeping. As a creator and a creative, sleep, non-negotiable. I need to have a very comfortable bed. I need to have a temperature controlled room. So I always have the window open for fresh air, and I always have a fan going. And the amount of blankets on my bed depends on the season. And so I make sure that I'm set up to have the best sleep. I take a little sleep gummy, a little melatonin before I go to bed, and really gear myself down so that I can have a solid 8 to 10 hours, non-negotiable. And I think of things like the food that I eat. That is another high level habit. So does this food that I'm about to eat, does it have the energy and the nutrients that my body needs in order to operate at its most optimal? Everybody has different chemistry. Everybody has different needs. For me, my relationship with food changes seasonally. So the things that I eat will shift depending what weather season we are in. So now that we are in spring, there's a lot more raw vegetables and fruit, a lot more light foods that I'm eating, versus when I'm in a winter season, it's a lot of root vegetables, a lot of stews, red meats, things that are nice and dense and hearty and anchor me. And then spring starts to lighten it up. Summer lightens up even more. Fall is kind of the gear down and transition into the winter season. And I also really like doing really warming foods in the fall and winter, and then cooling foods in the spring and summer. So I experiment. I know what's right for my body. I know, and I pay attention. And that's the best way to figure it out for yourself, is pay attention to how you feel after you eat something. Do you have more energy? If you have more energy, then that gets added to the list of this thing is good for me at this particular season. If your energy is dense and lethargic and you're like, what? Well, I don't want to do anything, probably not the vibe for you. Okay. So we're not going to get into, what you should and shouldn't eat. But I think you already know on some level the foods that actually support you in feeling more energized and the ones that don't. So that's the distinction I want you to play with. Also, slowing down to eat. So not eating on the go, not multitasking, but actually sitting down, being present with my food so that my system understands it's digestion time. We are in this phase of nourishment, and it is time to focus on that. Okay. Also, movement, exercise, that is a big one. You've got to move the energy. So if you have a history of freezing or fawning, this is going to be very helpful for you. Because the more you get in the pocket of movement and exercise, the more your system is kind of moving that stuck energy. So I teach a practice called embodied alchemy. I'm bringing back a series. So if you wanted to come and try it, there's a wait list. Go to the show notes, add yourself to it. Yes, we are going to be focusing on creative mastery and Michael Jackson. So if this conversation is hitting the spot, you probably want to be on that wait list to receive the special pricing to register. And when you move in a more alchemical way, when you move in and somatic practices are great for this, but also just like moving, exercise, sweat. Like your body is designed to move. If you stop moving, the creative energy in you stops moving. It pools, it stagnates. That's not a vibe, okay? So we want to keep the body moving. That's a high level habit. And again, you have to be so honest with yourself about what that looks like, because there's going to be parts of you that are like, yeah, I only need to, go for a walk. But the truth underneath it is actually, no, I need to lift weights, or I need to go for a run. I need to actually sweat. So you've got to be so honest with yourself. And that can change again with the seasons. It can change with the seasons of life. I am someone who has a lot of creative energy. I'm sure you're not shocked by that. And as a result, I actually do need more intense exercise more regularly. So what that looks like is 3 weeks out of the month, I'm working out almost every day. And then the week of my period, I gear it down and I focus more on just my long walks. So I'll do intensive workouts and walks throughout the remainder of the month. And then that particular week is mostly just walking and maybe some stretching, maybe a very gentle yoga class. But again, I listen to my system, and if she's like, you need to rest this week, I listen. And the times that I don't, I get bitch slapped. I didn't listen the other week. I was like, I'm feeling good. I think I can go to spin. And then I had debilitating pain for 3 days because my womb was like, bitch, you didn't listen. We just wanted to go on a walk and you took us to 2 spin classes. Fuck you. And then I was literally stopped for 3 days with like the most debilitating cramps I have had in decades. So, word to the wise. Create those high level habits in a way that really support your system. And then, of course, there are the practices around spirituality and mindset and like really getting in the pocket of expansive, positive self-image. So that can look like a lot of different things. It can be a journaling practice. It can be a meditation practice. It can be a qigong practice. So you kind of combine a little bit of the movement with these spiritual concepts. It can be, listening to spiritual, work and insights. It can be just sitting with yourself and communing with the creator, communing with source, communing with your higher self, just having an avenue to connect in. Because if you don't connect in, then you're kind of plugged into the matrix versus being plugged into source. And when you're plugged into source, the things that you create are different as well. So really looking at those high level habits. And then, of course, in order to create the conditions for greatness, you have to devote time and energy every single day to your craft in one way, shape, or form. So this is how I kind of practice it. There's actually no days off. Like no days off when it comes to your mission, when it comes to your craft. But when people hear that, they think it means going a million miles an hour, 24/7, 365 days a year. That's not it. But if you want to be masterful in your craft, if you want to create the conditions for greatness in your life, you cannot take the pulse like off of the thing that you are wanting to create. So for me, writing is that medium for me, whether it's songwriting, poetry, just writing transmissions, writing is the thing. And so I break it down like this. I'm either practicing my writing, that I don't know that there's been many days where I haven't written anything. Definitely not in the last, probably 5 years. Like that's when it really kicked in for me. And I write in some way, shape, or form every single day. So there's the practice. And then there's learning. So this counts as being like devoting your time and your energy into your craft, is learning about your craft. So you can learn on a more technical level. So if you're a sculptor, you'd probably want to learn some sculpting techniques, or if you're a painter, different painting techniques, or if you're a singer, different ways to utilize your instrument, your voice. If you are a writer, different forms of writing and, different aspects of writing. You want to be learning. And the final piece is creating. So you're actually creating something and putting it out in the world. And so it just depends where you are on your journey. But I think we can all agree that most things can be considered creation. Like if you created a meal, that's creation. So you're always creating, but this is more so getting you in the pocket of creating in tandem with your mastery. So if you want to be a chef, that would mean creating new recipes, creating meals, and like really taking a look at, okay, what works, what doesn't work, like how is this a win? How can I make this better? But you're creating, and the creation might look different than the practice. The practice might be, I need to learn how to, whisk eggs into heat so that they don't turn into like like cooked egg. I'm not a chef, so forgive me. But it is a difference like that versus like I'm in creation mode and I'm making this meal from start to finish and it will be a work of art at the end. So for me as, let's say, a songwriter, the practice would be getting in the writing room and throwing ideas around and practicing, maybe like picking up the guitar and practicing playing guitar, vocal practice, writing, so learning and studying, and then like practicing lyric writing. And then the creation is a different phase where I'm also in the writer's room or I'm with my guitar, but I'm using those tools in order to create a song. And then that song gets recorded and put out in the world either by me or by somebody else. So when you really want to create the conditions for greatness, you must, this is non-negotiable, devote time every day to your craft. It doesn't have to be long. It can be 15 minutes. You're probably going to want to do more, but 15 minutes is a good place to start. So either 15 minutes of practicing, 15 minutes of learning, or 15 minutes of creating. That is completely doable. I don't care who you are. That's doable if you are on a track like this, if you are on a path like this. And the people who are like that, not possible, those people are not in the game. They're not quite at that place of devotion yet. They are still getting caught up in the noise and the bullshit. They have too many things on their plate that they don't actually want on their plate, and they're not willing to clear the decks in order to create the space and time. That's just what it is. Okay. So if you're here and you're specifically, 35 minutes in with me, you don't have to worry about that. You're already in the pocket. Like if you were if you were one of those people, as soon as you heard me talk about cutting the noise and the bullshit, you would have been like, bye. No way. I'll listen to this. So if you're here, don't worry about it. But like, it's something that you need to have on your radar, right? Because sometimes that excuse can come in. I don't have the time. I don't feel like it. Trust me, there are days that I do not feel like writing. And you know what I do? I write about not feeling like writing. Sometimes those become the best pieces because they are the most honest. Okay. The final thing that I really want to talk about is, well, there's a couple more actually. I'm lying to you. Okay. The next one, let's just say the next one is that you have to be so for real with yourself about how you play small and how you take yourself out. And you've got to put measures in place to account for that so that future you isn't cock blocked by your past self, your fears, or any inherited or injected fears or shame. Because like I said about the dream killers, they're also going to be really well equipped at injecting shame, guilt, fear into the mix. So you have to take responsibility for yourself and your life and put measures in place. They're almost like safeguards. Like, this is going to happen. Don't go into this utopia delulu where you're like, that's never going to happen to me. I'm always going to be dialed in. No, you're not. No, you're not. You are a human. You are going to human. That is true. And part of humaning is that we negotiate our greatness. We negotiate with ourselves. We negotiate with our mediocrity. We're like, well, I don't really have to. I don't have to work out today. I don't have to move my body. I don't have to practice today. Okay. Well, if that's the thing that you're giving your time and energy to, that's going to get you a certain result. But if you know that this is just part of the human experience, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to be so for real with myself about it. Not only does that create the conditions to not get trapped by shame when it does come up, but it also puts you in a position to get in the rooms or have some sort of support or accountability structure in place so that you can't fall off track. I talked about this, I think 2 weeks ago, with the accountability that I put into place with a friend of mine. And I also am obviously in containers and I have mentorship, and so those hold me to a higher standard of showing up as well, because I'm not going into those containers and being like, well, I didn't do anything. No way. I'm going in being like, this is what I have done. And this is also the stuff that's gotten in the way or that's come up for me. And so to have those spaces where that accountability is there, but also people who relate to you as though you are totally capable of fulfilling on the things that you say you're going to fulfill on is very important. And if you'd like to come into a space like that, my Express 4-week group coaching container is perfect. 4 weeks, we are really focused on where you specifically need to change and the changes you want to make that will support your vision, that will support your mission and the things that you want to create into form. And having that 4-week container, and we're going to do some shadow work, we're going to do some embodiment work, we're going to get in right relationship with reality and get you in the pocket so that you are set. And having that accountability is so huge. And having people who champion you and who believe in you and who are going to breathe life into you while you're making those changes is what's going to make the difference between whether you do them in the first place and whether they are sustainable long term. Okay, so if you'd like to come into that, the details are obviously in the show notes. And I've also decided that anyone who's registered for that container gets access to my upcoming Embodied Alchemy series. So if you were like, I want to do that too, great, you're going to get to, especially if you come into Express. So you're going to get that as my little bonus to you, my little gift to you. And it really is a space for women who are really ready to create the changes that they have been kind of sitting on for a while. So if that's where you're at, check it out in the show notes. I did add a payment plan because that was requested. So that's in there. So now there's not really any real reason or excuse, especially if you are really committed to the things that you want to create, okay? And you like my vibe and you like my energy and you're like, yes, I want to be in that energy. I want to be supported. I want to be championed, but I also want someone who is not going to take my shit and who isn't going to let me play small, but do so in a very loving way. I'm your girl. Okay. And then two more things to have on your radar. If you really want to create the conditions for greatness, you have got to get in right relationship with messiness, making mistakes, and failure. So there's a lot of shame alchemy that happens when we step into getting in right relationship with those three areas. Because the one and only reason why people resist messiness, failure, or mistakes is because of the shame that's attached to it. And once you dissolve the shame, which by the way, we are going to do in Express, and we do in any of my work. So we'll also be doing it in the embodiment series. When you dissolve shame, then mistakes and messiness and failure become information. They become the high quality information you need to make adjustments and to fine tune your alignment, to fine tune your congruence. I am a big fuck around, find out, experiment, figure out what works for you and what doesn't. Like that is just the story of my life. It works very well for me. I'm not afraid of it. So if you are someone who gets a little tense, you definitely want to work with someone like me so that you can attune to my energy. You can attune to the approval that I have around those particular areas of life so that you can learn through that relational container. Because all that is essentially co-regulation. You're co-regulating to a nervous system and a paradigm that is more expansive, that supports you. So when you make a mistake, you're not collapsed in shame. When things are messy and they don't go according to your plan, you don't collapse in shame. When something doesn't work out, quote unquote, it fails, you don't collapse in shame. But instead, we can look at it like good little scientists and we're like, okay, what happened there? What did I learn? What was missing that would have made a difference? Is this kind of steering me in a different direction? And is that direction a little bit more on purpose? Probably. And like any of those stories of like what you're making that mean about yourself, they get slayed right away so that you can't use that as ammo against yourself. Because if you are shitting on yourself all day long because there was a fucking typo in your email, I'm sorry, but like that is not creating the conditions for greatness. It just isn't. That is creating the conditions for the type of perfectionism that has a chokehold on your expression and that will hold you back. Michael Jackson was a perfectionist in the sense of it served his mastery. Like, he wasn't going to put out something sloppy. But it also wasn't the type of perfectionism that stopped him from putting anything out, period. So you've got to be able to kind of play with kind of the shadow side of perfectionism, which is the type that chokeholds you and never lets you, do anything and create anything. And the type of perfectionism, if you're going to play with that thread, I like to think of that more as excellence and a devotion to mastery more than perfectionism. That just resonates better for me. But if you would like to use it as like the flip side of the shadow of perfectionism, the light side of perfectionism is this attunement to quality, doing complete work, really being intentional with every part of the process. And that is the building blocks of mastery. So when we really want to excel and keep the momentum going, we have to understand that it is going to be messy sometimes. Things aren't always going to work out the way that you think that they should, and that there will be mistakes that you make. And it's in that terrain that you are actually forged, that you are prepared, that you are receiving something that you need in order to hold the magnificence of your work, of your mission, of your energy, of what you came here to do. Okay? And so if that is an area that fucks you up, you 100% need to be in my world. Like, no joke. Because this is an area that stops so many women. And to be honest, I had multiple one-to-ones and group coaching calls this week where this theme came up. So I know it's in the collective. And if you're listening, you might be hearing that in yourself and you're like, yeah, that's me. Okay, great. That's okay. Come work with me. And let's clear that so that you can actually really go all in on you and all in on your mission and what you're here to create. Okay. The final piece of creating the conditions for greatness is that you must make ample time for play, for fun, and spaciousness. In other words, to live your life and have a great time living it. Okay. Fun and playfulness, those energies are so powerful. They remind us and they take us back to our innocence. They take us back to that childlike awe and wonder. They give us vital nutrients that support the creation of what we're here to bring forward and bring through. And also having enough spaciousness in your life to be able to receive those creative downloads when they come. If you're moving 1,000,000 miles an hour and your life is pure chaos, it's going to be very hard to hear that channel and decipher the channel of source from the channel of distortion. Because the channel of distortion will learn the lingo of creation and kind of use it against you. So one of the best ways to really protect your energy is by keeping it vital and alive through play, through fun, through just going out and having a good time with the people that you really love, or just taking yourself out and doing things that you really enjoy. Like, y'all, I love my evening weed walks. They're just my favorite. I'm not always high when I do them. But that is part of the process for me, especially if I'm working through something creative. So if I'm working on a piece of music, I will take a little weed gummy. I will hit the streets at like 9 p.m. and I will walk for an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. And I will just have the song on repeat, running it through, and I'm hearing and I'm listening for other melodies, for other instrumental parts, for background vocals, for harmonies, for lyric changes. rhythmic changes in the vocal, like I'm using that time to creatively mastermind. And there are days where I'm not working on music when I'm going on these walks and I'm just in reception mode. So I will listen to a podcast, in the pocket of something I want to learn about. Shout out to my friend Rainier Wild and his podcast, The Creators. I love it so much. It's like storytelling for adults. It's the best. And if you are creative, these stories are so wonderful because he's highlighting different creators and their experiences and their lives and the ways in which they created and what they created. It's brilliant. I love it. Sometimes I will listen to an audiobook, although I kind of save audiobooks for when I'm just walking around throughout my day. But sometimes I'll listen to one on my night walk. It's rare, but I will. And then other times I will just put on a soundtrack that I really love. These days, it's an all Michael Jackson playlist. And I listen to how those songs are being structured. I'm listening for all of the different tracks, all of the different aspects, and that's helping inform how I create. And sometimes when I'm listening to other people's music, that's also a time where I am channeling other pieces of writing. So I will be stopping multiple times in my walk to write down a poem or to write down an idea that I will sit with when I get home, and I'll write the poem or the piece. My upcoming book, the title and the structure of it came on one of these walks. And a lot of the pieces that are in that book came during one of those walks or after. So it's something that I just find a lot of pleasure in. I love them. They're so fun for me, but that might not be fun for you. You may have something else that is really fun for you. And I want you to have permission to go into that regularly while also balancing everything else that I share today. And if you're like, how the fuck am I going to do that? Again, you get in my world and I will take a look at everything that's going on. I will be able to read energetically what's going on in you and like, this thing over here, that's leaching and leaking a ton of energy. So let's get that sorted, and I'll help you get it sorted so that you have more energy to kind of balance all of these aspects, because it's actually not a lot to balance when your system is clear. This is a lot to balance when you're in managing mode, when you're just managing your energy and trying to hold it all together because you're not actually willing to open and release and clear the channel. But also there's a lot of things in your life that probably shouldn't be there, or they need to be reimagined, or they just need to be handled because they're a huge energy leak. So if that is where you're at and you're like, please, yes, help me audit my life for optimal creative flow, great. Come get in my world. I will put the links in the show notes so that you can either join Express or you can put yourself on the wait list for the embodiment series. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. I'm very accessible, especially on Instagram. And that is probably the best way to contact me if you want to use social media. And I love you all. Thank you for being here today. And I'm just so thrilled to live in a world full of people who are connected to their heart and connected to their creative energy and are willing to show up for something bigger, to leave this world a better place, and to be an extension and an expression of love in a time where it's very tempting to not be that. So I see you, and I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for being here. If this episode made a difference for you in any way, shape, or form, I'd love to hear. You can leave a comment on the actual episode in Spotify. You can leave me a review on Apple. You can leave a comment on YouTube. You can rate and subscribe to the podcast if this is your first time here, and share it with someone who you believe in, who has a mission, who has a sparkle, who has a creative light in them that you're like, I really want to make sure that they stay the course because they have something special. And if you know someone like that, please pass this episode to them. And I'm just so grateful for you. Thank you for being here. I love you, and I will talk to you next week. Bye, friends.